Hello and welcome to this podcast brought to you by Treasury Today. On the 22nd of October, Treasury and finance professionals from across the US came to Treasury Today's annual Women in Treasury and Finance US Forum at the Midtown Lofton Terrace in New York. During the event, attendees had the opportunity to network, share ideas and hear from expert speakers about a range of thought-provoking topics. Meg Coates, Publisher and Operations Director at the Treasury Today Group, welcomed attendees to the event.
Welcome to New York and to our Women in Treasury and Finance Forum. So our forum here in New York is very close to our hearts. We have received such overwhelming support since the beginning and have, together with all of you, created a phenomenal community.
Sophie Jackson, CEO of Treasury Today, held a fireside chat with two speakers from Standard Chartered Bank, Yasmin N. Lofton, Director of Transaction Banking Sales, and Mark Troutman, Managing Director, Global Head of Transaction Banking Corporate Sales, Corporate and Investment Banking. Sophie asked Yasmin about the findings of this year's Global Equity Study, sponsored by Standard Chartered.
What stood out to me was the 78% of the individuals that say that they are active supporters of diversity, inclusion, as well as gender equity in the workplace. I think that's phenomenal. The next thing that really stood out to me was the 91% of individuals that believe that ultimately diversity brings a greater team.
So what advice can you offer to other men who are looking to support conversations around equity?
I think from my vantage point, it's very important that other allies, to promote allyship, there needs to be an environment of psychological safety.
Yes.
People need to feel that they can trust in the person that they want to perhaps reveal some personal situations. There needs to be, I think, also an appreciation that there's coaching and there's mentor-mentee relationships, and they're not necessarily exactly the same thing. The other thing I would say is just, and you said it nicely, it's listen. Don't dominate a conversation, actually ask questions and listen.
Following a presentation for the 2025 Within Award winners in the Americas, Sophie introduced this year's panelists, including two of the award winners, Sandra Ramos Alves, SVP and Treasurer at Bristol Myers Squibb, and Nicola Bates, President and CEO at Siemens Capital Company. They were joined on stage by Anjali Shah, Managing Director, Chief Commercial Officer, Head of Americas Sales, Treasury Services at BNY, and Gayatri Vasudev, Global Head of Core Payment Rails at JP Morgan.
I worked in mergers and acquisitions for a bunch of software companies, or just really one software company that eventually got acquired by Hewlett Packard. And I stayed on for a decade, so a long career there, to do sales operations, sales management. I ran a business. I was a job share partner for 3 years where I ran a $300 million line of software business. And then our lives changed in direction. My husband had the opportunity to build a semiconductor factory in Morocco, Africa. So we moved to Morocco, and that company took us to Charlotte. And when you're in Charlotte long enough, I like to joke, you end up in banking. So that's how I ended up in banking.
Gayatri, I want to come to you now. Tell us a little bit about your career journey. You've spent 20 years in financial services.
So I started in India, in Mumbai, in mortgages. So I did mortgage loans, and then my husband happened to be coming to the US. I had a technology background. I got a job with a VC in the US, so close to private equity. And then, I'm dating myself, but like the cycle turns on the stock market and things went bust with that VC. And so I was thinking, what do I do next? And at the time, there was an alum of my business school who met me and said, oh, there is a role in cash management. And I was like, what is cash management?
Sandra, I'm lucky enough to know you and your story quite well. So tell us about your career today and how your early experiences in particular have shaped and driven your approach to your career.
So I started my career at AT&T in a rotational program, so it was great. Every 6 months you get to rotate, you get to learn new things, and you move on. I spent a couple of years in internal audit, which is a great place to learn the business, but And then I was blessed enough to have an opportunity to join the Treasury organization. And I thought, okay, this is going to be another 6-month rotation and I'll move on in my merry way. And here I am 24 years later.
Nicola, I want to come to you now. You've had a long career at Siemens.
You know, the one constant, I think, is that I've always tried to put myself into situations where I can learn and grow and do new things. I started as an intern at Siemens in Munich many years ago. And when an opportunity arose to work for the Treasury Center for Siemens in Hong Kong, I jumped on it and I packed my bags and moved straight to Hong Kong, where I stayed for almost 5 years. And then when a position arose at the Siemens Treasury Center in the US, I was pretty much on the next plane out of Hong Kong to the US. And so, and I've grown within Siemens Treasury in the US since then, working in different areas of Treasury and the various, what we call at Siemens, product lines throughout the course of my career. So I suppose if there's any strategy, I suppose, to my career, it's really being just flexible, open to change, you know, and open to opportunity.
The panellists talked about personal development and how to avoid burnout while staying effective as a leader.
Someone gave me a tip, which I'm still trying to follow, but I will share it with everyone. They said block out your calendar for 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And that allows you to really read stuff, think about things, rather than what normally the calendar would look like, just jumping from one meeting to another, no time to process, no time to act on stuff.
Anjali and Sandra spoke about the need for flexibility and effective delegation when managing a team.
I really delegate and I rely on my team to do their best because they don't need me to micromanage them. I have an amazing group of people that work with me at BMS, and they take ownership of their areas and they're very innovative. So it's a lot of fun.
We also think that talent needs to be thought through in terms of maybe different and flexibility that you were referencing earlier. Like perhaps businesses should start thinking about, with AI being available and giving us tools to be more productive, that perhaps HR organizations should start thinking about, can we start maybe allowing for part-time work so that talent could work and have flexibility, with AI as being a helper to that.
And Nicholas spoke about the importance of valuing different leadership styles.
You know, I think we tend to over-reward, in a way, charisma, I think. You know, whereas very often it's the quiet leader that's the one that makes the big difference. You know, and I think we need to check ourselves on that, right? Are we judging women too harshly? Are we overvaluing this, you know, the loud, confident types, and undervaluing quiet strengths, right, in our leaders? Once we start to show up, you know, in a different way, where we do really proactively support one another, we speak up for one another, we sponsor each other, and we take care of each other, that's when we start to change the narrative.
Absolutely.
In fact.
We would like to thank our panellists, Sandra, Nicola, Anjali and Gayatri, as well as our speakers Yasmin and Mark, and everyone who joined us on the day. Thanks also to our sponsors, BNY, JP Morgan and Standard Chartered, and to our supporters, Bank of America, Barclays, Goldman Sachs, HSBC, Kyriba, Morgan Stanley and Wells Fargo. If you would like to hear more of our podcast episodes, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you would like to be part of the conversation, you can join our Women in Treasury and Finance community on LinkedIn.